Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. Who says I have an excellent connection? Look at that. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tatiana. Hi, Alyssa. Y'all, I done grown up. I got notes so that I don't go off ad nauseum at the beginning. Y'all know I love to run my mouth, and having people to listen is just adding fuel to my fire. Story of my life. Thanks. So, I don't want to waste too much time because I can be long winded and you all have things to do. So, let me, hey, all right, Papa Boko. All right, so I have notes, two sets of notes. Um, the first note is about discount codes. I have some discounts going on. Summer's End is the 15% off discount code for my online store. Why would you want to buy anything from my online store, you ask? Well, you would want to buy something from my online store because I have things like digital iCal files that put right into your phone or your device in your digital calendar every time and date the moon changes signs in the Sidereal zodiac. Hey, Shimila, my friend. Um, and I also what was I saying? I have digital iCal files that tell you the date and time that the moon changes signs in the sidereal zodiac every day. Tells you the dates and times of the new moon, full moon, and eclipses. So if you've had this calendar in your phone or your device already, you know exactly what time the moon entered Leo today, you know exactly what time the new moon is tomorrow, and so on and so forth. I also have a calendar that has the sidereal planetary transits in it right in my phone. I made this available to you because I've been using this myself for several years, and I decided to make it available to y'all because it's very useful. So you don't have to ask me where the planets are. You can have it in your phone. You don't have to download a gazillion-dollar app with things that you don't know how to read. It's in a convenient place in your phone. So get 15% off both of those things if you go to my website and use the code Summer's End. I also have the 2019 Eclipse Guide, the 2019 Sidereal Astrology Guide, an ebook on why the houses mean what they mean. And my favorite is the monthly horoscope workbook. Again, the monthly horoscope, high limited edition. Hey, Chunky Warlock. The limited, hey, Clyde, Bond, and Layla. Um, the monthly horoscope workbook came from techniques that I personally use for myself and my own private astrological practice. And I wrote them down in a workbook for you to make your own monthly horoscopes. These things are already very, very cheap, but with 15% off until, so through Monday, with the code Summer's In, go to shop.thepeoplesoracle.com and use that code to get 15% off. Also, if you saw my cute little thread about my conversation with my son and learning how to take responsibility for his emotions, again, I don't just sit on here and talk about astrological theories. I use astrology every single day of my life, and I use it in my parenting. This is why I offer a reading called Intentional Parenting with Astrology. Some people have already taken advantage of this discount, but again, go to thepeoplesoracle.com and click book a reading. Under astrology, you'll see intentional parenting with astrology. Use the code parenting goals. Parenting goals. Use the code parenting goals and get 15% off the intentional parenting with astrology reading. I will put, hey Christina Corns, I will put those codes in the description to this video. If you're on Instagram, I will post them in my story and on my page. And if you're on Twitter, they're already there. Well, some of them. All right. The last thing in this first half of announcements, a lot of you have still been asking me about tutoring. Y'all in my inbox, y'all DMing me, and I love y'all. And I'm really excited to do these one-on-one sessions with you guys. As you all know, I am a single mother who has a child who occasionally gets ill and has to be hospitalized. And that alone, on top of being a single one woman show entrepreneur, means that I'm very busy. School starts for my son next week, so I'm hoping to get out the rest of the information on tutoring either next week or the following. So keep your eyes peeled. In person readings and workshops. Chicago, I do in person readings twice a month at Haji Healing Salon. These readings are offered at a community rate that are a very, very, very small percentage of what you would pay for a reading over the phone or on my website. So if you are looking to read with me in person, come see me at Haji Healing Salon. Again, I always post when I'm going to be there. I will be there this Sunday, September 2nd, doing tarot or sidereal astrology readings. You can come see me there. I'm also planning a couple of trips, one to New Orleans and one to New York. So if you are interested in doing a sidereal birth chart workshop with me, send me a message, DM me with your email address, or contact me via the contact on my booking website and let me know where you are, and if you're interested in it. And once I make appropriate plans, I will, you all are so funny on YouTube. I will give you guys an appropriate official invite to whatever I'm going to be doing in those cities. I also plan to be doing a sidereal birth chart workshop in Chicago soon at Haji Healing Salon. So if you've never been to Haji Healing Salon, it is a Black woman owned business that offers yoga, community acupuncture, massage, tarot, cowrie shell divinations, and partners with all kinds of organizations in the city for your healing. Again, you can get these things at prices that you will not find anywhere. The community healing model is expanding across the country and the world, and this is where you can get it in Chicago. Hey Nadia, yes, massage, Reiki, all of that stuff. All right, that's the end of my first. I don't know what's going on here. Y'all are saying my stuff is buffering on. We are not receiving data from your encoder. Oh, now you are. Sorry, I'm dual streaming on Instagram and on YouTube. Um, okay, hopefully this doesn't mess up. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Okay, so let's get to the astrology. This is a new moon in Leo, always sidereal, never tropical. You will never hear me talking about tropical. Tropical signs are not the same as sidereal signs. Yes, they have the same name, but the philosophical and conceptual and technical basis for how the signs are calculated and interpreted are different. Okay, so when I talk about sidereal signs, they do not apply to your tropical birth chart. I'm sorry, not sorry. Okay, this is a big deal new moon in Leo. And this is why I've been talking about it so much and writing horoscopes and doing sermons and going live, because this is a big deal. And there are about 3 or 4 reasons why. The first reason why this particular new moon is a big deal is because there are several conjunctions occurring at and around this new moon, which means new stories between planetary bodies are beginning all at the same time. So we are in this collective kind of balsamic phase. The balsamic phase of a sun moon cycle means that the moon is approaching its conjunction for a new moon, and it means that it's getting dark and we can't see. Energy is falling. It is analogous to the portion of a woman's cycle when the walls of her uterus are, and I won't say women because women aren't the only people who have uteruses, but a uterus bearing bodies moment of shedding the blood in the walls of the uterus. Energy decreases, hormones change and fluctuate. We move from an external conscious, visible fire, air to an internal subconscious water, earth, right? So we are collectively in that in this balsamic phase because of the moon and because of the fact that Mercury, Sun, and Mars are all having these new cycles. I know YouTube is tripping. I don't know what's going on. Streaming again. Um, so having all of these conjunctions, Mercury conjunct Sun, Mercury conjunct Mars, Mars conjunct Sun, all happening at the same time, meaning that old stories, when these last conjunctions would have occurred, are ending and new stories are beginning. So I want to go back to 2017 as really the seed to many of the aspects and things that are happening now. Um, I honestly have been having experiences and topics resurface from that time in very, very, very literal ways. Um, so, uh, this new moon is a new everything, and new means you can't see what it's going to be yet, but you can tell that something is ending. What space is being cleared, just like in the uterus. When the shedding of the walls, the shedding of the lining in the uterus occurs, it is making space for an opportunity to try again next month, right? So that's happening. The other thing, number two, is that's happening is that at the same time, again, that we're having a new moon and all of these planets are starting new cycles, we are in the closing square of the Jupiter in Scorpio transit. That means, and you may have heard me say this before, that I don't even know if this YouTube is working. Sorry, y'all. That the outer planets determine the time and the season, right? So Saturn would be the season, Jupiter would be the time. Well, I wouldn't even say that. Both Jupiter and Saturn are both indicative of seasons. And it is the quicker moving planets, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, that translate and articulate that and give us personal interaction with these larger seasons. Those quicker moving planets are like the hour and minute hands on a clock. But I guess a better way to put that is that Saturn is 2.5 year cycles and Jupiter is 1 year cycles. And so because the sun changes sign 12 times in a year, you know, the moon changes signs 12 times in 1 month, and so on and so forth, those are the quicker moving hands that articulate to us and interface with us in very personal ways the larger transits. So for me to say that this is the closing square of the Jupiter and Scorpio transit means that back in November and December of 2018, planets were conjoining Jupiter fresh into Scorpio. We had a Mercury retrograde that began with a conjunction to Jupiter, ended with a conjunction with Jupiter in Scorpio. And over the course of that, Sun and Mercury and Venus all conjoined Jupiter in Scorpio. Right now, right, all of those planets are in their final square, right? The midpoint would have been the oppositions in May and June of 2019. We would have had planets in Taurus opposing planets in Scorpio. Now, planets in Leo are squaring planets in Scorpio. That's the second piece. And I'm going to break down what all this means without the astrology, but some of you all care, so I'm saying this. The final piece is that everything that's happening right now is setting us up for two things in 2020. And this is one of the primary narratives, the foundational narrative of 2020. Eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus, Venus retrograde in Taurus. And that leads me to this next piece. Scorpio is climate change. Some of you have heard me say this before, but Scorpio has been occupied by a planet or major transit since at least 2014. 2014, Saturn was in Scorpio until 2017, right? And it really actually goes back before that because eclipses were in Scorpio and Taurus 2011, 2012, and I believe 2013 as well. So going back to 2011, something was happening in Scorpio and Taurus. First eclipses, then Saturn in Scorpio from 2011 until 2014. We had a very, 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 very brief break of 2015 until we got to 2016. And well, actually, there wasn't no break because Saturn was still. Wait, when did Saturn? Right, Saturn was in Scorpio from 2014 to 2017. 2016, there was a Mars retrograde in Scorpio. Then we had a break from 2017, end of 2017 through October of 2018. So we had a 1 year break where there was no Scorpio. And then Jupiter entered Scorpio in October of 2018. And now Jupiter will leave Scorpio and give us like a 6 month rest until eclipses begin in Taurus and Scorpio, right? And those eclipses begin June of 2020 and last until 2022. Scorpio is climate change. I went and looked at a gazillion charts, not a gazillion, probably like 15 or 20 charts of major deadly hurricanes. And every single storm had this one thing in common with the exception of Hurricane Katrina, right? Hurricane Katrina was an outlier. And what the charts for the formation of all of these deadly storms going back to the very early 1900s was that planets were in Leo and Scorpio, sometimes Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus, sometimes Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, and Aquarius, sometimes Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. But something was always square between Leo and Scorpio. Now, this might mean, eclipses, hurricane season is in August and September when planets are generally transiting Leo. Even hurricanes that happened in October had planets in Leo and Scorpio. And so if we go back to 2017 and we saw eclipses in Leo, square Saturn in Scorpio, when we got to that big eclipse at the end of August of 2017 into that first week of September 2017, we saw Harvey, Maria, Irma, and what else? Like all of these storms back to back to back to back to back. We saw fires. And here we are again at this moment where planets in Leo are all it's this weekend. Like I can't make this up. In my calendar right now, it says, and you can pull up the chart for yourself. It says Monday, September 2nd, Tuesday, September 3rd. Sun conjunct Mars in Leo, Mercury conjunct Mars in Leo, Sun conjunct Mercury in Leo. Venus in Leo square Jupiter in Scorpio. And then Friday, Mercury in Leo square Jupiter in Scorpio. And then Sunday the 8th, Sun in Leo square Jupiter in Scorpio. And then the following week, Mars in Leo square Jupiter in Scorpio. So this weekend opens up what I believe will be an opportunity for storms. And it starts with Dorian. This is not to say that Dorian is going to be deadly, but it's quite possible just given the data. That's all I have to say about that. Now, part 2, Leo and Scorpio is manifesting so literally. You've seen my horoscopes. You've seen my threads and my posts and my lives, and I've talked about Leo as representing something about our relationship with authority and how humans need leaders, right? Every group of people, every culture and society that comes together has some hierarchy, some structure of leadership that puts one or a few or a certain class of people in a position of authority relative to the rest of society. And so leadership is not bad. Leadership is not bad. It's not wrong to want leadership. It's not bad or wrong to put leaders in leadership position. But this is what we must understand, that when we use proximity to authority as a means to defining ourselves, then it becomes a problem. And so what we're seeing in this moment, we have people in positions of authority who cannot differentiate between who they are as a person and the position they occupy. We have people who see proximity to those people as a kind of power. And as I've been saying, that the promise of dominion, meaning claiming authority or ownership over someone else, means that you must give up dominion over yourself. If your identity is rooted in your authority or dominion over someone else, you have given up self-determination. You have given up the ability or the privilege to say who you are. And I'm talking about white people. Your whiteness exists within the context of that's not me. I'm not black. I'm not Mexican, right? I'm not Honduran. I'm not Salvadoran. I'm not Venezuelan. I'm not Brazilian. All of those things, right? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Well, what are you? Whiteness literally just means I'm not. That's what that means. So what are you? You don't know, right? So we're seeing this play out in very, very, very big and literal ways. The essence of this Leo moon square Jupiter is, what are our leaders doing about climate change? And I don't need to answer that question because you already know. So the real question is, what do we as citizens who appoint our leaders, who submit to our leaders, right? What are we doing in order to hold our leaders accountable? Hong Kong, I know what Hong Kong is doing. And you do too if you pay attention to the news. That's it. So just to recap, this is a big deal new moon. It's not an eclipse, but what it is a seed point for lots of stories. Next summer and really next fall, end of the summer 2020, fall of 2020, Mars is going to retrograde in Aries and Pisces. And the conjunction between the Sun and Mars, this is the seed for that. The seed conjunction for the Mars retrograde is occurring in Leo. And so authoritarianism and fascism and power dynamics and deference and submission, all of those are key words, right? Submission means that I'm yielding my perceptions and judgments to the authority of someone else's perceptions and judgments. I did find my favorite deck. So to say, and you don't have to choose to submit to authority. By being a citizen or living in a certain area, you are automatically subjected to this person's authority. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. You can say that's not my president, but you're an American citizen. You're in America. You are living on American soil. You are driving on American streets. And so you are subject to the authority of the President of the United States. And so it's not doing anybody any good to continue to say that he is not the president. Somebody's got to hold him accountable, right? So I'm thinking about the ways that we are holding ourselves accountable for our own perceptions and judgments, right? Where in your life are you saying, well, at least I'm not that. I'll never be like them. Well, what are you actually, right? What do you identify with? What is the value system that your perceptions and judgments are rooted in? I talked about how we really do seek out these paternal-like figures. And I think that's the only way that patriarchy has been able to last as long as it does, is that we have abdicated our responsibility for forming our own perceptions and moral judgments. And so we would prefer to submit to a religion. We would prefer to submit to a political party or some kind of philosophy or ideology. And not that those things are wrong, but they're problematic when they take the place of making moral judgments on your own, using your own perceptions. This is how people get in cults, right? Cults are like, I want you to tell me what to do. I want you to tell me what to eat. I want you to tell me what to wear. I want you to tell me when I can go to sleep and wake up. I want you to tell me what to do with my time. I want you to tell me what the rules are. Who can I marry? Who can I love? How many children should I have? Right? These are what these systems do, right? These systems give us frameworks in order to make decisions in our lives, but they often require that we arrest the development of our own moral conscience. And so I don't know that you need any more. I don't know that you need any more motivation to see clearly the consequences of yielding the right to make your own moral judgments to some authority figure outside of you being detrimental. White people are willing to kill themselves just to keep other people from not having anything. White women would rather slave than to get paid maternity leave just so Black and Latino women won't have it. White men would rather make $7 an hour rather than raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour just so Black men won't have it. So let's make it personal. Let's make it personal for ourselves. It is not enough to say what you're not. It's not enough to say at least I'm not that. I'll never be like them, right? Well, I'm not this. What are you? What do you stand for? Last piece, this new moon is trine. This new moon is trine. Oh, I've only been talking for 15 minutes. Wow. Okay. Well, not really, because I turned it on and off. But this new moon is trine Saturn in Sagittarius. Trines are dangerous. This is the thing, right? People are like, oh, but I want to trine this. My sun is trine his Venus, right? See, the thing is that with squares, the conflict is in your face. The square between Leo and Scorpio is really loud. Perceptions and judgments, leaders, authority figures, fathers, in conflict with our survival instinct. Climate change. It's obvious. You're looking at it. It's happening. Like they just went to the G7 summit and talked about how they were going to give Brazil money to help fight the fires. And Brazil's like, well, no, I'm not going to take your money unless you say sorry to me for saying mean things about me. Like, wow, so you're going to burn down the whole world and suffocate us all because somebody said something you don't like. Man, y'all got work to do. So trines, though, they're sneaky. Trines are sneaky. Trines reinforce, right? So using politics and morality and religion to reinforce authority, right? That's how that happens when you're not really paying attention. But when you're paying attention, right, your own moral consciousness and convictions, your inner connection to your own integrity compass, right, directs how you make judgments and perceive the world around you. But see, the challenge is so many of us are unaware of what it is that motivates us and why we do what we do, that there are unconscious things that are motivating how we perceive things rather than conscious decisions to make conscious moral judgments that we put in the work to come to informing our perceptions and judgments. So that's that on that. It's time to cut this deck and lay down these cards. I'm ready. This is the Golden Thread Tarot. Golden Thread Tarot, just in case you didn't know. All right. It seems to be working. I'm glad YouTube seems back up, even though it looks like it's down on my end, but I'm not watching, so, you know. We're going to cut the card on the bottom, and the card on the bottom is going to be the significator offering context for how we read everything else. All right. And let's do one of these. All right. Let's cut this deck, folks. The card on the bottom is Temperance. Temperance. When I'm reading for clients, this is the anxiety medication, antidepressants card, right? Temperance, though, is moderation. And I don't mean moderation, oh, okay, just have a little bit, right? Just need a little bit of it. I mean moderation in what is the little thing saying about the big thing, right? Or is the little thing saying anything about the big thing? It's finding the proper context for our emotions and feelings and our perceptions and judgments. It's being able to rightly discern whether what we're perceiving is indicative of a larger pattern or story. It's being able to perceive and rightly discern whether our current feelings, our reactions, our emotional states are indicative of a larger pattern, story, or interaction or relational dynamic, or is our feeling state at present just about the present. Temperance means be careful about making a little thing of a big thing, right? Making a big thing of a little thing, right? Temperance does have connotations with sobriety and making changes in our habits where we have overindulged in the past. This particular card, I always like to look at the image and see what it gives to me in this moment. This particular card has this angel, and the cups actually are kind of reminiscent of the Ten of Cups, but whenever I see these little lines coming out the brain, this is like consciousness to me, right? It's what you perceive with your eyes and your mind, which you're fully aware of. But water is always instinct, right? So, and then they're in water again down here. And then all of these images are so interesting because the triangle is fire. So I don't know if you guys know of some of the shapes that are associated with each element, but triangle is fire. And then you've got an angel with wings. So there's something in here about divine perspective. And divine perspective means to me that there is a dynamic and sometimes difficult effort to bring these things into balance. Bringing into balance our instinct, which is our biological drives. And these things are often programmed unconsciously by experiences that we had no control over. Then we have fire, which is our conscious will, right? Our will to act. The light around the head is our conscious awareness. So there's something here about really bringing into right relationship instinct, and this has been a theme all year with Jupiter and Scorpio, instinct and will, and instinct and what we're consciously aware of. I think that's sometimes to say too that the way that we're interpreting things is not always because of factors that we are consciously aware of. As a matter of fact, the way that we are interpreting things is almost always due to things that we are unconsciously aware of. I call it the stories. We humans gear towards stories. So the story of our identity, right? Which is really important for Leo, right? When we're talking about identity, identity is a belief system. It is a story that you tell about who you are. And that story comes from how you've either consciously or unconsciously interpreted your experiences. And you got two choices when you're out living in the world. Your two choices are, okay, I have this experience and this experience is, it's like, oh, this is not even me, right? We always say, that's not even me. I would never do that. Like, oh, she had me so outside of myself. What is outside of yourself, right? Like, you can't get outside of yourself. You can do things that you would normally do, and you can do things that you wouldn't normally do, but they're all you, right? So that story that we tell about who we are, we can either choose to integrate those experiences, and I use choose lightly because, you know, we can choose to integrate those experiences, or we can reject them and be in a defensive stance. And this is really where we find ourselves collectively, that when we get in a defensive stance, instead of considering the possibility that there's a part of ourselves that's unsavory, that we don't like, we say, oh, that's not me. Oh, this is not the America I knew. It's like your definition of America and my definition of America are totally different, right? But we do this personally as well, right? When we find other people bringing out parts of ourselves, right? Oh, she just brought out the worst in me. And my thing is just like, the worst in you is you, right? Ain't nobody bringing nothing out of you, right? It's you. It's all you. So we're seeking balance in, and I don't even want to say balance. Right relationship is my favorite word, because sometimes you need to go off and sometimes you don't need to go off. Sometimes you go off when you didn't want to go off, but you're glad you went off because they ain't playing with you no more, right? All right, Queen of Wands. This is the card of self-determination. 5 of Wands, fire. And 6 of Swords. All right. These cards really do reiterate this conflict of will. And I want to define this conflict of will as an identity crisis. An identity crisis comes when life is asking you to be someone different than you perceive yourself to be. And when we have identity crisis, we can unravel, we can get on the defensive, we can bear down and double down in the old story of who we are. We can surrender. right? When we have an identity crisis, what's really being challenged is our story, the story of who you believe that you are, the story that you repeat over and over and over again. And so your relationships then become a venue for your own story of who you are to be reinforced through interaction. But as soon as that person reflects back to you a part of yourself that you don't identify with or as, what you gonna do, right? The nature of relationships, I think, are full of identity crises because relationships force you into intimacy. But the conflict that comes is like, oh no, right? In intimacy, I don't mean I take off your clothes. I mean, I take off my clothes, you take off your clothes, we naked together. Intimacy means I don't know what you're doing over there, but this relationship is the venue for me to stand in this mirror and take all of my clothes off and look at and accept myself. And you can come join me or you cannot come join me. But what I'm doing here is facing myself honestly with radical honesty. So this identity crisis, the Queen of Wands is the card of self-determination. I get to say who I am, right? This is not about what you're not, right? Defensiveness says, I'm not like that. I just be rolling my eyes because, we all say that. We all get into these storytellings of explaining conflict at work and explaining conflict with our loved ones. And it all boils down to who you're not, right? So in this moment, this identity crisis that comes at this new moon, right? Our own stories are being challenged. The stories that we are so deeply invested in maintaining. And there's a lot of reasons why you might be invested in maintaining a certain story. First of all, is sanity, right? Sanity, right? Because insanity is the lack of cohesion between parts of ourselves, is fragmentation, right? But other reasons just might be loss of control, right? The vulnerability that comes with accepting the fact that your shit stinks. You too poop stinky poo, right? So, Queen of Wands, Five of Wands, this is really an identity crisis of self-determination. And I do see context for this at large. I mean, look at around the world and the leadership and the decisions that leadership is making. And we are really being asked to accept what it is that our leadership is revealing about who we are. It is not enough to say, I am not like Trump. I am not like whatever that dude's name is in the UK, right? Or in Brazil or wherever. It's not enough to say, well, I'm not like that, right? You have to be willing to say what you actually are, right? So then we come to the Six of Swords. And this Six of Swords is about perspective and clarity, right? I always look at this card to be like, oh, I'm in my feelings, but I'm not in my feelings, if you know what I mean, right? I'm feeling my feelings, but I'm not in my feelings, right? I'm able to differentiate between what I'm feeling and who I am. So English is a really trash language because English says, I am sad, I am hungry. And it's like, no, you're a human who is experiencing sadness. You are a human who is currently experiencing hunger. So the English language, I think the structure of it in some ways gears us towards this actual crisis that we're in. When we're looking at swords, we're talking about words and language allows us to get some distance. So intuitively, kind of what's coming up with me, and I've been thinking about this for a while, so I guess this is the appropriate context to say it in. I've been thinking about how LGBTQ folks are pressing the boundaries of our language, right? When we talk about gender, right? We talk about it in the binary. However, it's really a spectrum. And the English language struggles to deal with things that are not black and white. So when we find language for something, when we give voice or word to something, right? We are acknowledging its existence. Acknowledging something's existence doesn't mean that you give power to it. As a matter of fact, when you don't acknowledge something, is when something has the most power over you. When you're constantly pushing it down and you feel the discomfort of it coming up and you ignore it and you drink it away, you smoke it away, you run it away, you lift it away, you sex it away, right? You write it and work it away, right? The very thing that you're avoiding has the most power over you. So these cards are speaking to us about the identity crisis, rooted in properly contextualizing us, ourselves, our experiences, right? We talk about an identity crisis as your narrative of self being challenged. And I think this is so important when there's this massive square between planets in Leo and Jupiter in Scorpio, because our survival instinct is something that humans think that they've evolved out of. I'm so rational. I am science. You see the data and the numbers. 1 + 1 = 2. I am so smart. Look at my PhD. Look at my cellular device, right? As if all of these things are separate from our survival instinct. But as a matter of fact, life has a way of humbling you and reminding you that you actually have a body and that your identity is body bound. But when your identity undermines, attacks, seeks to talk you out of your survival, right, at the expense of actually living, then we have a problem. Again, I'm really, sometimes I speak symbolically, but I always try to bring things back down to practically. And I really hope that you can see the parallel between leaders, which are represented by the sun, who are undoing climate protections, environmental protections at a time when climate change is now. Climate change is not 10 years. It's now, today, right now. All right. Next cards here are the 5 of Swords, Knight of Pentacles. Sorry if y'all on YouTube didn't see that 5 of Swords. And the 8 of Swords. Man, this is speaking like a really clear sentence to me. And it's saying that you took the risk to erect some boundaries, and you've been working diligently at maintaining those boundaries. But there is no happy ending, in the sense that, oh yay, you stood up for yourself, right? You gave boundaries, happily ever after. This 8 of Swords is speaking to I almost want to say like boundaries not being enough. The 5 of Swords is this card of, it looks really like dire in this deck, right? It's just death and tombstones and these swords, right? But I read that card is you don't have to consider the opinions of other people. I almost feel like the 5 of Swords is the other polarity to Taurus, right? Taurus is like validation. I need you to like me. Tell me I'm pretty. Make me feel good about myself. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially when that validation comes from a deep awareness of self and it's not necessarily rooted in self-destructive insecurity. right? So the Five of Swords is like, it's not that I don't need your validation. It is not required in this situation. Thanks, but no thanks, right? It's not, I don't need you to like me. It's that in this particular situation right here, my goal is not for you to like me. My goal is to make a boundary so that it's clear where you end and I begin. I do not need to consider your opinions or judgments as I am forming my own judgments, right? So this card is not the forming judgments part. It's the saying, let me clear away the influence of other people's perceptions and judgments from my own thought process. And that's really, 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 really hard. The fear of rejection and abandonment is enough to make people do some really crazy stuff. So this Five of Swords is talking about erecting that mental boundary, claiming the space of your mind as your own. This goes back to what I was talking about. The sun represents our perceptions and judgments, right? And when the sun is in Leo, right, our perceptions and judgments serve our own self, right? So we might perceive the world around us as an extension of our own perceptions and judgments, right? So the fire seeks to conform the outer world to this. When the sun is in any other sign, though, one's perceptions and judgments are subservient to some other something, right? So sun in Sagittarius is subservient to Jupiter, and Jupiter is our morals, it's religion, politics. It's how we believe the world works, what we believe about who we are, right? So the perceptions and judgments are subservient to something else. So the Five of Swords is talking about the discernment process of really figuring out what is shaping your own perceptions. Why do you think that way? Why are you this person? Why do you keep telling the story about who you are? Facts are irrelevant because you can interpret the facts any way you want to. I could be sitting on the couch because I'm lazy. I could be sitting on the couch because I'm working. I could be sitting on the couch because I'm sad. I could be sitting on the couch because I'm in love with this couch, right? The fact is that I'm sitting on the couch, but why? Right? And someone might say why I'm sitting on the couch, but it don't have nothing to do with me, right? This is the nature of identity, that my perceptions and judgments about you and this world have everything to do with me, nothing to do with you. Right? Everything to do with the story I'm trying to tell about who I am, not of who you actually are, or who you intend to be. So when you really get into the work, you strive to understand and discern the difference between my judgments that are rooted in my own identity and my capacity to perceive someone else's intention about who they are and how they want to be seen and show up. Right? When you really get into the work, this becomes about, okay, wait a minute. It's true, right? Projection is not bad. Projection is the way that humans perceive themselves. Humans cannot perceive themselves without projection, right? But the problem is when you identify with the projection and you can't differentiate between who you are, who that person is, and then what they're showing you about who you are. So this second row of cards, this Knight of Pentacles, this Eight of Swords, this Five of Swords, the Knight of Pentacles stuck between these swords is it's making me uncomfortable because the Knight of Swords to me is like, keep at it. You planted something, don't give up. But these swords are disconnecting and dissociating from the work. These swords are wanting to escape the fact that you just got to stick to it sometimes. So, where in your life have you been working to really erect boundaries, to define yourself for yourself? Where in your life have you been differentiating between your own perceptions and judgments and those you have adopted from other people and their perception of you? Are you weary? Does it feel like too much? Does it feel difficult? The Eight of Swords is a card of when your logic fails and your reason fails, right? When you find you don't have the right tools for the job, right? If the job is self-determination, if the job is dissecting our narrative of self, if our job is finding language to articulate the truth of who we are and who we've been and find a reconciliation, right? The Eight of Swords is like, wait a minute, what's your tools for the job here? It's a lot of swords in this reading, right? We don't have no cups. All of these swords are talking about the language, talking about it, writing about it, conceptualizing it, putting it into words, right? It's about logic, the tool of measuring and quantifying and putting things in categories. You're not a machine. So it's not like, let me just remove this insecurity, cut it out, and put it over here, right? And you try to remove that insecurity, and then it's a whole web of stuff coming out with it. And next thing you know, you done took out your kidneys, you took out your spleen. You're like, oh, let me put that back, right? You just can't cut out the undesirable parts of yourselves like a surgeon. Because when you cut out the undesirable parts of yourselves, it's connected to a whole web and framework of your identity, some of which you love about yourself. So now you put the insecurity back and you don't say, I am not insecure. You say, I experience insecurity, right? Well, then why? What are the experiences that bring insecurity? Is insecurity bad? Is it wrong? Can you embrace insecurity as part of the spectrum of human emotion? Can you embrace sadness, rejection and abandonment, joy and love and pleasure as all on the spectrum of human experience? Or you trying to slice it out of yourself, right? You try to cut it out of yourself. Like, oh, I know what I do. Who, me? Jealous? Never. Next thing you know, right? You don't have a spine, right? It's not enough to say what you're not. I'm not insecure. I'm not jealous. I'm not narcissistic. I'm not egotistical. I'm not poor. Heathens. I'm not racist. Oh, okay, well, I did this one thing that was racist. So let me just you been done took off your whole skin suit. Right, talking about I'm not racist. Identity is a story. A story is a web. It's all interconnected. We're all interconnected. So you just can't cut a person out of society. You cannot cut a group of people out of society. You cannot estrange and isolate a group of people without damaging the whole system and structure. You can cut a person out of your life, and sometimes it's totally necessary to do that for your safety and well-being. But understand, just because you don't see them don't mean you don't hear them. Just because you don't see them with your eyes and in the presence physically don't mean they're not in your head. Doesn't change the experiences you've had with them that have shaped who you are. Doesn't change the narratives you've internalized about how they perceive you, whether they're true or not. You gotta be careful with them knives, yo. Might hurt yourself. There are so many swords in this reading. I'm tired of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's only 10 cards here. 5 of Pentacles. Wow, we got 3 5s. Let's talk about that. The Sun. 10 of Swords. This Ten of Swords, I swear, has been in like every reading that we've done here. I see y'all comments. Let me be me though. Y'all so funny. Five of Pentacles. We got 3 5s here. Throwing yourself. The Sun. Let me tell y'all about this Sun card. Y'all think this thing is so cute. It's so pretty though. Look at it. Look at the sun. Look at the hand. Look at the wheat growing. This card is so cute. Let me tell you about the sun. I mean, of course, this is a Leo stellium, right? Right. Thank you, Winter. The sun in this Leo reading. God dog. Let me tell you about the sun, though. I taught my son about SON, about the tarot cards, the moon and the sun last night. Because he was like, Mommy, how come at night all of the scary and bad thoughts come, but in the morning all the good and happy thoughts come? Working with right? So I took this as a teaching moment, as I always do, because I have Jupiter conjunct my ascendant in its own sign. So I taught him about the moon and the sun, and I said the moon is darkness. I don't have a podcast, but this is up on YouTube. This will be up on YouTube. I'm actually probably going to end up uploading this video because I don't know if the other one is going to work well. So the sun, the moon is like, oh yeah, you know, the lights are off, you can't see, you hear a sound, you like, what's that, right? Oh, the example I gave was, you know, you're in the room, the light's off, you see a dark shadow run across the floor, you think it's a mouse, you're scared, you're screaming, you're yelling for your mama, you're up against the wall, you can't take it, oh my God, your survival instinct, your heart beating fast, all of that stuff, you turn on your lights, it's just a ball of tissue blown by the fan, right? Moon is that darkness where you cannot see what something is, and so your mind fabricates it, makes up a story. And sometimes it's making up a good story. But a lot of times it's just making up a story based on the past because it can't see the present. Oh my God, this is about to turn off on Instagram. When it turns off in 1 minute and 51 seconds, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to start it again, or you got to go to YouTube. Okay? This video is about to stop in 1.5 minutes on Instagram. I will try to restart a new recording. If I can't, please find me on YouTube, Lynn Dana, Lynndaina, or you can search the People's Oracle. Okay, but I'm going to start it back up, so you should get a new recording. Fingers crossed, right? But Instagram just has a time limit. Okay, so the sun then is that moment when the lights come on. And first it's like, whoo, thank God, that was just the mouse. But then sometimes you turn on the lights and you realize you got a whole rat infestation. And so then what are you going to do, right? The sun is that moment where the lights come on and you can no longer pretend that you didn't see what you saw. The sun can be so glaring in a violent way that it sears away your comfort in telling whatever story you want to tell, right? The emotional narrative that defines how you perceive something. The sun flips that light on and be like, this goes all the way back to this, temperance card, right? Don't make a big thing a little thing. Don't make a big thing a little thing, right? What's the real story that you're telling based on how you feel or this particular experience, right? I see this all coming together in my mind. Let me talk about these cards here. Hold on, I'm gonna pause real quick because this is down to 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm back. We see how we worked that out? Ooh, the light here is just real crazy. Do I have any white paper? Where's some white? Let's do it with this. This isn't really white. Trying to get the color balance back. Okay, so I was talking about in this visual here, Temperance, 5 of Wands, Knight of Pentacles, Sun, right? There is the task of diligence and devotion that is indicated by this Knight of Pentacles. And I almost feel like these swords, right? Of course, the analogy that I gave before of cutting things out, I mean, and to be honest, just look at the Ten of Swords. Don't it look like that's what he did? It looked like he was like, oh, I know what I'm going to do with the parts of myself I don't like. I'm going to get them surgically removed. This is reminding me of one of my favorite movies, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And they were like, oh yeah, like, you know, I don't ever want to remember this person that I've loved, right? So they go see this person, and while they're sleeping, like somehow they go in and remove the memories of this person. But as soon as they meet again, as soon as these two people meet again, after they've had their memory of each other erased, they start from scratch. I feel like that is such indicative of this whole reading here, right? These people did this really extreme, intemperate, distemperate, whatever the word is, thing, right? They didn't like the feelings they were having, right? They didn't like the feelings of loss. They didn't like who they were when they felt certain feelings, right? The feeling of loneliness, the feeling of longing, the feeling of missing, of heartbreak, of sadness. And so they literally went and got the memories like surgically, psychically removed, right? But then it's like you went through all of that, removing every memory of this person from their lives. And the minute that they met each other again, it was like magnets, like moths to a flame. But this time, just as they were about to embark on this second round of, I didn't know that right, like as soon as they met for the second time, they also got the recordings that they did for their initial intake, like when they went to the place to get their memories removed. And so they sat and listened to the tape together, right? And their minds were blown because they literally had no memory of each other. But there they were on this tape speaking about the other person and saying all of these really awful things. And so I feel like that whole movie is like, or the lesson of that movie is in these cards. That it's, I don't want to say it's fate. I want to say, and fate for me doesn't mean what I think it means for y'all. For me, fate is time. It's the one thing that we can't control. But also, it's the importance of the people that are in our lives. Uh-oh, here comes my kid. The people who are in our lives, with the exception of those that we did not choose. So I'm talking about our family of origin and our upbringing. We didn't choose those people. But the people that are in our lives and as adults, really, I think these are people who come to us because there's a resonance in who we are. Yes, Saru, if you come in, you have to say hi to my video. You look good, man. You gonna look at you.
Hi.
They can't see your face. Lean over. Oh, you look good. You like it?
Yeah.
You look good? You have some bubble gum?
Yeah.
It's all over your mouth?
What's all?
Bubble gum?
What?
On your lip right here.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
Is your face itching?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to finish my video, okay?
No.
It's in Nana's room. Can you close the door?
Yeah.
I love you. You look good.
And everyone just saw you.
What? Saw me wave at you?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. It's all right. They giving you heart faces. So I was saying that the people who are in our lives, who we friend, who we befriend, who we fall in love with, thank y'all, who we find ourselves attracted and attached to, there's a resonance there, right? And the resonance starts, the beginning of it is always, I like the reflection of myself you give me. Thank you. I like how you make me feel about myself. I like the way that your presence reinforces the story I believe about who I am. But the minute that story, that person challenges the story you believe about who you are, what you gonna do? Do you fight your own projection? Do you push that person away and use all of these swords to cut this person out of your life? Do you want to remain static, unchanging, lodged in a story of who you are, refusing to see, to refusing the possibility that you could tell a new story about who you are? This does not mean that you get into a relationship and you change and morph to the form of this person. But what it does mean is that when you get into these identity crises where the reflections are, what it does mean is that you got some choices here, right? You could take it real personal and think that this is all about you and your feelings. How dare you? I'm not even like that. Why would you make me be this way? Right? I can't stand the way, the side of me that this person brings out. Sticking on to that story, holding it in your fist like this. Right? But see, the attachment is already there. And so once you try to cut that person out, it hurts yourself. Now, again, this is not to say that there should be no separation, there should be no boundaries. There absolutely should be boundaries. But you cannot have separation without boundary. You cannot have physical distance without emotional boundary. Because the physical distance just makes it all too easy for somebody else to step in and take the same place of the person that you got rid of. So I see all of these swords, this Five of Pentacles, this Sun, this Ten of Swords here, and I'm seeing the battle, the internal battle that we're having as humans on Earth, people living in the UK, America, all over the world. And we're having this internal battle, this crisis of identity. The earth is showing us who we are. Our leaders are showing us who we are. Our relationships are showing us who we are. And yet, when we don't like it, we think that we just need a new leader. But the effectuality of leadership to bring change requires that those who choose the leaders be honest about who they are. Obama was our, oh, I'm not racist president, because his skin was black, but his policies were still rooted in the same capitalism that was formed by American chattel slavery. Oh, I'm not racist. I voted for Barack Obama, right? We create all of these structures and dynamics in order to prove to ourselves that we're not the very thing that we are. But what does it look like if you just say, I am that? And maybe say, I am not that, right? What I mean is, we are some selfish people. We are. But this is what someone said we are selfish people, but this is what I mean when I say that we think we're so smart. Look at all of our science, and we went to the moon, and we've got cell phones, and look at our technological advancement, and look at, right? Look at, oh, we're just so smart. We're science. Look at us, right? None of those things have anything to do with being advanced when you cannot stop yourself from harming yourself and everyone else. And I'm talking about climate change. Oh, I told y'all that the two things that are most important to me right now are climate change justice. And the second thing, which is very, very, very important to this reading and this new moon and this new moment. If you missed the beginning of the reading, I was talking about this new moon being so important because so many cycles are starting at the same time. They're starting over and they're leading us to 2020 eclipses and the Mars retrograde, right? That second thing is identity is a belief system. A belief system is a philosophy, a doctrine, a myth that informs how we perceive ourselves, other people, and the world around us. Belief systems don't have to be true. It's better when they're not. But belief systems should change. Your identity can change, you know. You can be totally different. You absolutely can. These swords in this reading are talking to us about the mental knots that we tie ourselves in, trying to dissociate and disconnect from the very parts of ourselves that we don't like. The very parts of ourselves that climate change shows us, that our leaders show us, that our relationships show us, that our conflict shows us. Remember, all relationships start because I like the fact that you and reinforce the story that I believe about who I am. But relationships fail as soon as you are unwilling to consider the possibility that your story isn't true. Your belief system, your myth of identity is not true. And it is in that relationship that you are being forced to recognize the fact that you know you are perceiving something that is contrary to who you believe you are. So you see it. It's true. You're seeing it with your own eyes, but you can't accept it. This has so many layers of application, and I could really go on and on talking about it. But let's see, how long have I been on here? Definitely have been on here for like an hour and a half, right? One of the hallmarks of my work and my calling, hey Tim, is that there is no me over here and those people in that world out there. That the same astrology that's inside my birth chart, the same Mars that's transiting my ninth house right now, is the same Mars that's in Leo, about to conjoin the sun, indicative of the increasingly quickly, rapidly, immediately authoritarian and fascist policies of Donald Trump, of Boris, what's his name in the UK, of what's his name in Brazil, in France, in Canada. The same Mars. There is no, oh, well, this means this over here. No, it's everywhere. The quicker we see that, we might be getting somewhere. That's why it's my work. All right, y'all. There's a lot of announcements at the beginning of this video. If you're just tuning in, the other half of this reading on Instagram is in the first live video. They cut me off. And I'm going to try to figure out how to do this so that the whole entire reading is preserved. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm going to put those discount codes in the description of this reading on YouTube. I'll post them on Instagram. You all enjoy your Thursday. It's not Friday. Enjoy your extended weekend if you don't have to work Monday. I hope somebody brings you a plate if you do have to work on Monday. I hope somebody watch your kids for free if you do got to work on Monday. See y'all. Bye.